Hi, in this video what we're going to do is we're going to look at how the start of our API and how it works with Flask. Alright, so let's start it up. Alright, so when you clone the project, what you're going to get is that you have to make sure you're on branch less than 3. Okay, that has the version of this for the project. When I start this up, we're going to get a compose with Flask app and Flask DB. As soon as the project starts, what happens is that the MySQL will load this SQL, which is all your data, into the MySQL server. Then what we have is our app.py file, which at this point has a regular form-based traditional website where it doesn't use a web API to work with the data. And let's just take a look at our Flask app here at port 5000. So this is what your data looks like once everything starts up. And we have a link here. We can view the record, edit the record, save the record, view the record, and we can delete the record. And I'm gonna fix this button for delete, and I'll just show you how to do that, because right now it says save. What we do is, oh my bad, I'm gonna shut down WebStorm. We have a series of forms here. We have the index form. We have a view form, and here's our delete button. So I'll just put delete here. And then I press play. And if we go and click on it, now it's got a delete button here. Doesn't look pretty, but it all works. And we can go New York works and save it, and it changes. Now, how does this all work? Well, at this point, what happens is that we have Flask and let's just go through here. So we got this imports a library to work with JSON, which is JavaScript object notation. We got Flask here, and this is the MySQL connector. The app starts up, is first configured with this, and then this is getting MySQL connected. We have the app configuration here, which is the username, password, and name of the database. The name of the database comes from the init create the database here. And then the name of the table that we work with is this SQL code, which SQL is basically the language of relational databases that talks to MySQL. That's the language of MySQL and Oracle and all sorts of relational databases is structured query language SQL. This is the SQL statement to load all the data. Now, in the project that you're going to need to do, well, I'll get back to that, but in the project you're going to need to do, essentially what you got to do is just make new data. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But let's just first walk through the Python, finish working through that. This basically gets MySQL and Python and Flask connected. Then we have what are called routes. Here's our index, that's the slash, that's the URL for the home page. And here we go out and grab cities and everything. And this is running this SQL, and then the results from the SQL come back here. We then pass it to city's result. And when we go to the view, what happens is that this is a template, and we render out basically the we go to the index, and what happens is that we do 4 cities and cities. The curly brace here and the percent is like saying, hey, this is some Python code inside our template. Well, these templates are called Jinja, and then we go and it prints out the latitude, longitude, country, abbreviation, capital status, population, and everything, and from what's being passed in from the SQL database. So it's pretty straightforward. Just connect to the database. The cursor is the connection, is sort of the hand that goes into the database through the connection. This runs it, execute, and then fetch is getting our records, and then we're passing them into here. Now, here we have a route which is view, and then here is how you specify which record through a primary key, which is the ID. Excuse me, which is the primary key of the database record. That comes down into here. Then we do cursor, again, get the database cursor, which is the hand going into the database, getting ready to execute the command here to go and get the records. And here is what's called a parameterized query, where ID is replaced with is equal to %s. That's this. So city ID goes into %s, and it retrieves back the records. Then we fetch them, and we send them to the template, which is the view template. So you view, and then result. Here we have to specify 0 here as the index key of the array, because we're only getting one record in this case. And the view comes over to here, and this is what prints out the title and abbreviation and everything. And we can see whenever we click on here, that's how we get the title, the abbreviation for this country, and we have all the other information specified here. If we wanted to put it into the template, some text, we could just say latitude, country, and station, and then we would save this and we'll just run it again. And once it says successfully deployed here, and we can check here that it's working, because once we get this message, we can view it, and then we see that our information changed. Then what we do is we have let's follow the edit button. So what happens here is we go to a URL called edit. Here is the city ID. That's the primary key that we get out of, like, just like we get the other fields, but here we use the ID inside the URL. And I just have it labeled edit, and that's just some Bootstrap classes to make it look like the green button or the blue button. When I click edit, what happens is that we come over to here to a GetRoute. A GetRoute gets data. Basically, anytime it says get here, we're getting data. Then our cursor goes and grabs the city data, and we pass it in. It's kind of like the view, but we use an edit form. And here in the edit form, let's just go over an HTML edit form real quick. You have a form. The action is basically whenever the submit button is pressed, where is it going to be sent? And this is the method that we're going to use. In a web browser, we have to use the post method. So we go post right here, because that's in a browser, basically you have a get method, which gets the form, and the post method, which sends the update or the insert, or in a delete, it's basically like we just have a delete method, which we'll take a look at. In a browser, you only have get and post, but in a web API, you have get, post, put, and delete. It's a little different on a web API, which we'll talk about later. So there's the post. And here's the fields. This is a label is just the for field name. And let's just look at this. So we have ID, field name. These two have to match. If they don't, you're going to get a little error. The type is a text. Class, form control. These are all Bootstrap things. Placeholder, city name. That's if there's no data in the form field, it's going to just put city name. Then we have name, field name. The name part here is important because when we do the post request, which is down here, what happens is that the name field on the form is what goes inside of form get, the request form get method inside Flask, which we get for each one of the fields. And we got field name. So you got name, field abbreviation. We have to have name because that's basically what, whenever we press the submit button, that's what's going to carry the data to the server in the request body. And then value, what we do on edit is because we have to, on an edit form, we have to display the pre-existing values so that the person can edit them. We have value, which is the data that's going to be in the form. So it's basically name here goes, and this is what's going to be sent. Value is what's going to be inside the form, printed in the text box itself. So value, if we look at is what goes in here. But whenever I press save here, the name gets sent in a post request, because we have a post request here, and it gets sent to the address edit city ID as a post method. That comes down in here. See, we have post method here. Then city ID gets passed in. See, these two match up right here. The cursor is our data, basically where we work with the database. The input data comes through the form, and then we prepare a SQL query. It's called a prepared statement, with a parameterized prepared statement. And the SQL for it is update. So we update the record, and here we set the table, and then the fields that we're going to be updating set are all listed out, and you see they all have %s, because this is the placeholder for where that data is going to be inserted. And then we execute it. This is the query we made, and then this is the input data that was taken out of the form, and those two together go like a sandwich into the database. And then the database has to have a command called commit, and commit is like save. That saves the data into the, actually saves the data from that query into the database. Then when the post request ends, what we do is we just redirect back. We just redirect back to the index. See, we redirect to the slash, and that's why I can click on here, click edit, put some data in. Oh, that one's going to be too long. Whoops. Let me click on edit, and we're going to go to just change this, and we save it, and we go back. Now, we did get an error, which we're not really handling errors because it's a lot of work just to put all this together. Oops. So we got, see, we got too long. Capital status got too long because it has too much data in here. But one of the things I want to show you when we do get an error, it's kind of interesting, is let's say we want to look at inside the web server exactly what's going on. We can click on, see what I did was, let me just resend this and trigger that error again because I want you to see. Oops. Oh, we're gonna have a little bit of an issue here. Let's just go back to the home page, click New York, and if I edit and then I have too much data, and it should, let's just see if we didn't break everything. Sometimes that happens, and I'll show you how to deal with that in a second. So we got this. Look at the little command prompt right here. And what I can do is go to the line of that I'm interested in. So like one of the things I'm interested in is like what would be the data that I have, and that's too long. I can click on this, come over to PyCharm, and you see it gives us a debugger pin. And we really need to see the debugger inside the web server here because it's running in a web server. It's not run, and it's, we need to see inside of what's going on here because it's kind of like a smash up between SQL and the web server and Python all together. So we really need to see what's going on inside of it. So this allows us to get inside and see what's happening. And then we get a Python console here, and we can actually see, run Python, and we could be like print input data and take a look at it. We can also do a dump, and this will show us all the information that was available to the program at the time. So we can see our input data and our SQL update. We actually see the raw query here. If we go and click on here, we can do dump. And you can see what the query really is going to be. Okay. And let's just go back to PyCharm here. So this is how the update takes place. When we want to make a new record, what we want to do is we'll go to the server, and we can, I don't have a link for this. Well, we can put that in a little bit. So if I want to do cities new, I could fill this out. Oops. One N A 1,000,000 and save it. And it looks like our country field's too long, so let's just, we can actually just go back and save it. Now let me just show you, if your field's too long, or it says something like that whenever you want to edit it, what we have is this SQL that comes in here, and we can see how long our fields are supposed to be. So let's say our country, we want to make our country 40 characters long and save that. Now, if we want the database changes to actually be reflected, because we have to understand whenever the SQL server, MySQL, starts up for the very first time, when this Docker Compose fires up, it runs this code. But thereafter, every time you run it, it doesn't update the database with this initialization script. In order to sort of have a clean run of everything, what we got to do is totally get rid of the Docker stack, which is the Docker Compose right here, which is the two sets of containers for our app. And what we want to do is right click, and we just want to go down, and it's actually gonna, like, that's like delete, get rid of this whole database, everything that we got here. And once that's done, we can actually fire it up again. And we can check that we are running everything cool. So we got this fires up, there's no errors. The database looks like it's cool. It's loading up, it's ready for connections. Go back to here, I'm gonna click on here, and let's just see if we can put United States in. So I'm gonna go to /new, cities new. We'll put cities new in the menu in a second here. So now I'm going to go Pittsburgh, USA, America, I don't know what the longitude latitude of my hometown is, but we got NA and 1 million or so, and I'll save it. And right now we get Pittsburgh at the bottom with 1 million people here. Now, if I wanted to put the link for new form up in here, what I would do is I'm going to come into the Bootstrap, and I'm just going to actually I'm going to change the href here, so when I click on the brand, it'll kick me back to the home page, because that was something I didn't like, or we just forgot to fix. And let's just do a new nav item here. And put a URL for the home page. And let's do a /cities new, and then let's redeploy. And we'll just check it right here. So app and flask, and it looks like it's all good. And let's just see, we got, oh, this looks like this is going to be cities new, because I forgot to put the change in the text. Redeploy. And we can take a look here. We got cities new, and this takes us to the forum, and we can put this, and instead of saying success, maybe I'll go to say new and say create. And obviously we could press play and we'll get to that, but let's see the update. What I'm going to do now is just go down to the Python app, and we talked about creating new records, or we're working on new records here. We got what happens here is we got new just goes and gets the new form. We don't have to load any data, so that's the easiest one. And then whenever the new form submits, it's a post method, so it submits it back to new, but these are different because this is a post method and this is a get method, so we can reuse the same URL as long as we have a different request method. We get the cursor like usual, we get the data out of the form like the update request, and then we just do the SQL insert statement here, and then we do cursor execute and commit it, and then redirect back to the home page. Now, one of the tricks I want to show you is I can remove this, and I'll just show you this from scratch. I'm gonna go to data source and get MySQL, and I'm just gonna say it's root, and I think it's 32,000 is the port, 32,000, and I can test it, and I click apply and OK. And what I can do, which is pretty cool, is I can right click on cities data and I can open up a console to the SQL. Now watch what I'm gonna do. Is I'm gonna take this SQL statement and I'm gonna stick it into the console. And it's gonna tell me if I have any errors in my SQL statement. And basically the errors are the S's. And I could actually let me just fix the errors. Pittsburgh. They have to go in order. So be one. Basically what this is helpful for is just to test out our queries if we have any syntax errors. NA, and we can do population, whatever, and I can see what's inside the table right now. You can actually view that, and let's just change the name so we can easily tell the difference here. We're gonna say, let's call it Miami, and then I can run this, and if I review this, I can see that I inserted it. So you can directly access the database through PyCharm and test out your queries. And the only thing you got to remember is, like, if you're doing this, you just got to remember that the %S's have to get replaced with real data. So just take the query, remove the %S's, put real data in, because this doesn't know what %S's means. That %S's are for inside the programming language to basically be the placeholders for the data that you're going to insert. And let's just go back to @py. So that's like a little help with the SQL. And then the delete's pretty easy. It's like the delete is, if we look at a record and say, well, let's go back to home, and we got Miami down here. I'm gonna click delete, and we're gonna get rid of Miami. So let's look at get rid of the Pittsburgh record too, just Pittsburgh, and we click on delete. But before we click on delete, let's go look at the view. And view has a form in, and so what we do is we have a button, and it doesn't have any fields, it's just a form. And it has a method which is post, so actions where the form's going to go, and then post sends the data to the server, and then we have a delete. So we click on, that's what the button says. So whenever I click on delete, that's how we end up deleting the record. Now, I wanted to get you guys set up with the basics of just navigating forms of the get and post requests. But if you look down at the bottom, we have API requests. Okay, so one of the things that you'll always hear about, and it's going to be like in the next video we're going to do, is we have API requests. And if we look at the API cities, oh my bad, API cities v1 cities, we get this data, but it's really hard to see. So we use a program called Postman, and I just go download Postman from postman.com. And I download it and then install it, and I get this program. And basically what you do is you'll go through an introduction screen, but the gist of it is you got to click on this new button. You'll do a new request. Let's call this Python cities. It won't let you save it until we create a folder for a request. So we're going to create a folder called Python cities requests, and we'll save it in here. And then what we do is we're going to take the URL here and go to Postman, and we're going to send. Okay. And what we're going to look at in the next video, which I'll do in a little bit, which is going to be your final project, is that all we're going to do is just, you see we got get, post, put, and delete here. We have these different types of requests. We already have the SQL queries. So we can actually, let's do the delete because that's really easy. If we wanted to delete one of these records from the API and use Postman, all we got to do is just grab this, grab this code right here. We're going to come down to delete. And let's see if we can get delete to work. Actually, we'll just finish this up right now. So we would change this to delete. And then let's say we wanted to get rid of Tokyo. We would just do 1, and we can send it. Let me just check. Our pie charm here. Ooh, we gotta put v1 cities delete. I'm gonna just check all of these because basically they're all gonna be the same. Cities v1, API v1 cities, API v1 cities, API v1 v cities. And a post request is going to be a new one. A put request is an update. And then delete is delete. So we got to do AP1 cities, V1. All right, so let's just redeploy. And let's see if we can go to Postman. And it says unknown, but if we, that's the request type. So what happens is we got HTTP request responses for delete method. And it says it should be 200. And let's just go back over to PyCharm and just say we want to do a 200. And what that's going to do is a success. So 200 means a success. So let's just save this. And we're gonna, let's do a delete 2 and try this out. And so now we got a status 2, and if we do we can't do it on there, but if we do a get on there. Now let me just see if we have our API v1 cities. There we go. So it was the slash. So we ended up getting rid of this.